Chair, the Bureau of Public Works. This is a special meeting for July 12th. Calling the meeting to order, asking that the public comments, if there should be any, now is the time. Public
Mr.
comment?
Chairman, this is Elizabeth Bride. I'd like to make a comment if I may.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name first, but go ahead.
Elizabeth Bride.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my feedback on agenda item number 5, the proposed sewer house connection program. My name is Elizabeth Bride. I'm an MDC customer and homeowner from West Hartford. On May 30th, 2023, I shared my feedback on the proposed sewer ordinance revisions at the public hearing that was held, and I attended Monday's Finance Committee meeting as well. Today, I'd like to briefly share some additional thoughts. I'm glad to see the new program that is being proposed will offer some relief to homeowners should they need to make repairs to the sewer laterals on their own private property. However, as I commented previously, they do not currently address some of the other issues customers are facing, especially as it relates to the issue of retroactivity and potential reimbursement for repairs that have already been made out of necessity. To illustrate my point, I'd like to briefly share the issue I'm currently dealing with my home. In January 2023, we had a sewage backup into our home and called the MDC emergency line. They came out that night and explained the process to follow and also gave us the recommended contractors for repair. We arranged for the MDC approved contractor to come out and assess the situation. We learned through the contractor and the MDC staff who came on site during that process that our sewer line did not go to the street as many do, but it actually went down the hill behind our house, off our property, onto our neighbor's property, and into the woods behind our house before connecting to the main sewer line. A camera determined that the line in our property was clear and that the issue was some tree roots in the pipe in the woods behind my neighbor's house. As a result of the backup, we were not able to remain in our home for over a week. Our basement now requires significant repair. Our lawn was destroyed in several big areas due to the trucks and stones that needed to fix the situation. Ultimately, a pipe had to be replaced in the woods on my neighbor's property, and it cost $12,283. Our house and lawn have yet to be repaired, and it's almost 6 months later. It's important to note that due to the way the pipe was structured, we had absolutely no access as homeowners to this pipe for maintenance or repair, nor was there any agreement in place. The proposed program doesn't address situations like this one, where we were held responsible for pipes that are on someone else's property and to which we had no access or authority over. In addition, the proposed sewer house connection program currently does not address the issue of retroactivity, and it should, as I'm sure there are others dealing with situations like mine. Related to this issue is the new fund announced by the governor on June 26, 2023. As you all know, the New Hartford Sewerage System Repair and Improvement Fund helps homeowners in North Hartford who have been impacted by sewage issues, which is great. As I understand it, this program allows homeowners who have been impacted by damage on or after January 1st, 2021 to apply for reimbursement. Given that this new fund for Hartford residents allows for retroactive reimbursement, I believe the new sewer house connection program should also allow for this to help other MDC customers who have been affected by costly sewer issues and repairs. I would like to again respectfully request that language allowing retroactive reimbursement be added to the sewer house connection program, or at a minimum, some language be added that allows for some retroactive reimbursement for unique situations like my own. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further public comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Joe Shareko, Independent Consumer Advocate.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo Ms. Braden's comments, and I think she summed up the position that I communicated at the public hearing on the proposed ordinances. But I also just wanted to clear what might be a misconception of the applicability of the ordinance as drafted. On Monday's Board of Finance, during Monday's Board of Finance meeting, there was mention that it already applies to residents who are affected by a lateral issue on or after January 1st of 2021. But that is in fact not the case. That only applies to the DEEPS program, which is only available to Hartford residents. So as drafted, the ordinance typically does not have retroactive application. I think there should be some provision for retroactive application for unique situations like Elizabeth Brighton's, particularly where it serves the same policy goals of preventing infiltration, and more importantly, as a matter of equity, a customer in that situation should not be held responsible when really they had no reason to, or really no legal ability to maintain the line, given that it was on a neighboring property. So with that, I again urge that there be some kind of provision, whether it be a residual subsection of the proposed ordinance, which reserves the ability to apply it retroactively for certain unique situations, or in practice, if staff could apply it retroactively, I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shariko. Are there any further public comments? Hearing none, I want to take the opportunity here to ask the clerk to just make a clarification of the new technology that we're involved with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is John Myrtle. As everyone in the room can see, if we weren't here Monday, there's some new technology. We have mostly completed the upgrade for the boardroom. I just want to give a couple suggestions. The new mics, it'll take a little time to figure out the best practice, but I know on Monday I had said that we will leave them muted and need to unmute, but I think in general they should be left on, unmuted with the green circle. So just, you do have the ability to mute it, and just be aware, be careful if you're having side conversations, the mics are sensitive and they can pick that up. The cameras are functioning today and working, so far so good. So going forward, it would be, I guess, requested and recommended that any commissioners that are attending remotely, if possible, have your iPad and have your camera on so that it improves experience for everybody in the room when you're speaking, and also just, it gives us more capabilities to see everyone and participate in the meetings. And again, we're in a good place today. Everything's working. I want to thank Luke. I'm not sure if he's still here. He was the vendor working on it. He's been working a lot the past 2 weeks, but I think we can all expect there may be some issues that arise as we get used to this. But I hope everyone enjoys the better improved experience, because I think it will be better.
Thank you, John. We have the first item to take care of is the approval of the minutes, so we'll need a motion to do that.
Adoption.
And second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. Can we just ask the clerk to give me the names of the folks who are on the phone?
Yes, we have Commissioners Adel, Wolf, Gentile, and then we have MDC staff, Jamie Harlow, David Baker from IT, and Joe Shariko, the consumer advocate, is on there.
Great, thank you.
And 2 members of the public.
Thank you. So we have 2 items, action items on our agenda. Number 4, I don't believe is an executive session, but I'll ask the district council just to respond to that point.
Thanks to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Council. There's no need at this point to go into executive session. The document before you has been made public. It's been distributed both to NDC commissioners and outside individuals, so not necessary.
Thank you. And I'm guessing that Scott will take care of presenting the issue itself under number 4 or assigning staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try and do it quickly, and if there's questions, we're happy to answer them. So we try to make this as simple as possible. What we provided was hard copies, and what you should have in front of you are 2 documents. One document is on deep letterhead, and is executed consent order issued to us in September of 2022. And the board approved this very document in December of the same year, 2022. What we have done is taken the document and we've modified it. This has been, we've been working on this right up in literally until today, but just to make it as easy as possible for the commissioners to see the modifications. So what we've done is we've highlighted the modifications in blue. And that way you can clearly see the changes. The changes in general are very, we are comfortable with. I'm going to go through them quickly. And then if there's any questions, if you'd like to ask, we're more than happy. So if you look at the first page, one very important thing, which we're okay with, the original consent order did not address sewer backups and basements. The consent order itself with EPA in non-Hartford towns did. It identified specifically consent basement backups up to a 5-year storm, backups in the street up to a 10-year storm, and SSO overflows up to a 25-year storm, quote, elimination. They felt they wanted to add this in, which we're fine with because that's our whole goal, is to eliminate backups in basements. And we went round and round with language, but we were comfortable with this language. There was some language that they not necessarily was trying to impose on us, but they were trying, the initial language was talking about street flooding and how it was impacting our source. So we changed that. We're comfortable with that language. If you look at page, number 4, I think it is, very light, number 4, page number 4. Those 2 blue sections really talk about the fact that we were never allowed to, under the consent order, allowed to work on private property. So this kind of gives us that ability at Deep's level to work on private property, and therefore is how we get the 50% grant that they proposed. If you look at the next page, there are number 2, 3, and 4, and they wanted to understand, and this goes back to the Weathersfield Cove. As you know, the way in which we kept the rate structure for the Clean Water Project, the integrated plan, flat, and I wouldn't say flat, but to the same schedule that was approved in 2018, and then subsequent as part of this September 22, we had to push $300 million worth of work off, right? And one of those projects, which is about $120 million, was to eliminate the overflows to the Weathersfield Cove. So the concern Deep had, which we're okay with, is they want to make sure that we're maximizing up until the point we get to resolving the issues with the Weathersfield Cove. We want to make sure that we're maximizing the capacity of the tunnel, which will be, in a sense, in operation in December of 26. So that's what the first one is talking about the control strategy of the tunnel. Also, the next one is really talking about, they wanted to make sure that we're explaining that the tunnel is going to be in use, and we're not going to wait for contract 4 to be completed before 10 years from now, before the tunnel's in use. And the tunnel obviously is in use because the SSOs in Newington and Weathersfield will be dumping into the tunnel on or before December of 2026. That's number 2. And then again, what we said, and I've said numerous times, we've asked Deep. They wanted initially to tell us when you're going to start designing contract 4 for Franklin Avenue so that we can eliminate the overflows to the Weathersfield Cove. And what we said to them is, we would like the same flexibility that we have in North Hartford. We do not want to build big pipe to capture overflows to eliminate the overflow to the Weathersfield Cove. Let's do what we're doing in North Hartford. Let's take $120 million and let's invest it in separating the system in Franklin Avenue, because that was the original plan years ago. So they agreed to that, gave us some flexibility. That language there says we're going to come up with a design and a strategy on how we're going to do that. So that's what number 4 is. And then if you look at page number, I think it's number 8, 7. Wow, it's late. The on and before full compliance with the consent order, on and before issuance of the consent order quarterly. So a lot of this is communication, quarterly reports. We're going to do an annual report, but we're okay with quarterly reports. It's a matter about keeping everybody informed as to what we're doing. We're completely happy with doing that. Again, website, keeping it updated, user-friendly. It's all about communication. We're completely supportive of that. If you go to page number 8, is that right? Including some actions. One of the things, and very important thing for DEEP, is they've taken a gamble, which is, we're happy that they've done that. We've said, listen, we think we know a better way to do this, and we think by doing all this private property work, we're going to eliminate more stormwater through this process than you would have gotten if you would have built tunnels to capture a 1-year storm. So the measurement of how we do that and the effectiveness on how we do that is kind of outlined in these next couple of pages, making sure that we are notifying and keeping track of our progress. If you look at page number 9, I think that's 9, right? On and before able issuance of consent order, conduct annual meetings. This is the annual meeting piece. It was really about scheduling and making sure that we're having that. We were supposed to have a meeting this past April. Obviously, that's got changed because of everything. So it's just bringing that April date back in front of the public and providing a public hearing. Again, this public hearing for April will not be specific to North Hartford. It's specific to the entire consent order. So everything, not just North Hartford. And then, so that's all the public hearing stuff. If you look at page number, I'm sorry, that is page number 10. They, as part of proving to DEEP that what we're doing is effective, they've asked us to hire a third-party consultant, engineering consultant, to verify and provide a separate specific report as to how we have benefited the community. So one thing that we have always said is the consent order was always to benefit the river. The way in which they measure how successful we are in the consent order is how much have you complied with your 1 level of control or your elimination at the river. We have said the whole logic of the new approach is to protect the homes. So we want to make sure that protecting the home is measured as important as protecting the river. So we've included that, and they've agreed to that we'll get credit for. We may not, DEEP, I've already told them this, we've said this in this room, you may not see the benefit right up front at the CSO at the river, the way that the original proposal and original plan was. And that's okay. We believe that over time, you'll see a bigger benefit than what was originally going to be anticipated. But you've got to give us credit for the amount of work we're going to be doing in the community. So they've got to also give us credit for that. So that's kind of what this talks about. Page number 11. This is just a measurement stick, how much pipe we've installed, how many backwater valves, all that good stuff. And then page number 12 is really the last change, and they've asked us to update some of the appendices. If you look at appendix C number B, they've asked to identify, we always talk about all of these CSOs we have in Hartford, and they wanted to know in a table, what's the level of control under the consent order that we have to comply with. So you'll see the first 9 are elimination, that's the Weathersfield Cove and the North Branch of the Park River, and the rest of them are set to a 1-year level of control. And that's really it. Nothing surprising. The work in the North Hartford area didn't change, except for, you will see, there's a resolution for Board of Finance, which is number 10 on the full board. The one thing that we have identified in the $120 million, $29 million that we talked about last 2 nights ago, was that there's $4 million in that $129 million for private property backwater valve work. And when we did our maps and when we identified the locations in which this work would be done and get 50% credit, which we don't grant, which we don't get now, it did not include, North Hartford was not identified to include the Albany Avenue area. So Deep agreed to change the map so that when we do private property work in that North Hartford area of the Granby, the Albany Avenue area, that they would also be in part of the program and we'd get the 50% grant. Either way, our customers, no matter where they are going to be a part of this ordinance, are going to get a new house connection, not lateral, house connection. We're trying to train ourselves. We use the term lateral like we use it, and it's a practical word. But by our ordinances, we refer to the house connection as the pipe that goes from the house to the street. So we're trying to be consistent with our ordinances that we're asking you to approve tonight. So that is the summary. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer them. If I can't, Chris or Jay or Mike Curley or somebody can answer.
Commissioner,
Yeah, Dave Drake. Going through this, in all respect, what's $4 million going to do for house connections for the whole MDC area? It seems like nothing.
It's not. It's just
like
for
nothing. I mean, if this lady on the phone, she's 12 grand, so that's maybe if you had 400 people, we're down to 399. I mean, I just don't even know why we're bothering with this, to be honest with you, to go into people's private property. To me, this is going to end up being like a fight. You know, people go back, especially if we go back retroactive. But I just don't have a sense for the numbers. It's just like $4 million. It doesn't like anything to me. It's just like It's just open up a door that you're going to have people lined up and everybody be mad.
Yeah. So just remember, the 4 million represents like the internal pump, backwater valve, work. A lot of the other work that's outside the property, like the lining of the laterals, is part of another contract. It's part of it was built in with that 129. So it's not just $4 million.
Yeah, but that 129, that's Hartford work more though.
But that 4 million is for Hartford.
Wait, I misunderstood. I thought 4 million was for everybody outside of that, for the whole MDC.
That's the line item within the 129 for North Hartford. But North Hartford was defined by a map, and we said Deep agrees that we want to include portions of Albany Avenue that are also considered North Hartford. So we're just expanding the map. So that 4 million is for North Hartford project in this area. We've included, as part of our budget, we've included two. So we're gonna ramp up in the other towns. Mm-hmm. So the way that we've kept our curve, if you remember that curve, we talked about the clean water surcharge. We're gonna keep it the same way it was in 2018. The way we ramped up backwater valves outside of North Hartford was we start out this coming year in January with 2 million. Then it goes to 3, then it goes to 5, then it goes to 7, and it stays at 7 for a period of years. So we're ramping that money up. It's all being paid for by the clean water surcharge. And the benefit is, how do we do that without increasing the rate? We pushed $300 million worth of work. So that's how we paid for it. without raising the rate.
Not to say I'm not worried about paying for it, it's just, I'm more worried about, it's just not anything. It's just such a small number. I mean, we have so many connections, like we're talking retrofit. When I moved to my house 30 years ago, I had to fix the sewer was broken. Are you gonna, careful, we're gonna go back and pay for my 30-year connection, because it was,
Yes.
I just think for 4
So
or 5
just remember the
that's like
129,
anything.
just remember the 129, there's different projects, right? So some projects gonna be separation projects. We have five separation projects right up front. Then we have, contracts 7, 8, and 9, which are bigger construction projects that will be done in the next 5, 7, 8 years, all within the 10-year period. So some of those projects are doing the work that this $4 million is doing, but it's part of that contract. This $4 million is specific to.
No, I'm going back to, forget the north end.
Okay.
I think that problem's been
Sure.
somewhat resolved, and
Sure.
I think that's good. I'm just thinking, opening up the private laterals and all these houses for everybody else behind that, it seems like that could be a huge number. But anyways, well, I'm listening, that's all.
So if we look at to your point, Commissioner, if you look at, and I raised this issue, and the lady on the phone, and I think Joe Shareko raised this issue about retroactivity. It's a question. It should be discussed here. It should be discussed at the board level. The numbers. Now, the numbers. We don't know. We need more information as whether or not these were point repairs or a full lateral replacement. We only know what we know, right? If a contractor came in and pulled a permit and utility services to replace Mrs. Jones' lateral, we know about it. But if they replace their lateral, we don't know about it. We wouldn't even consider reimbursement because we didn't inspect it, right? So what we know is this: in 2018, there were 287 permits pulled. We don't know if it's point repair or we don't know if it's a full replacement. In 2019, 340. 2020, 170. 2021, 197. 2022, 78. And 2023, 97. So what we know is if you were to do a retro and you want to go back, whatever number of years you want to go back, then those are the numbers. We'd have to figure out, is it point repair or is it full lateral?
So last year, 2020, there's only 78 people had
97.
laterals. 97 had laterals repaired for the whole MDC other than, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so remember, there's categories here, right? So you might have a new lateral installed because of a development. That's a different animal. That's not this number. We're talking about people who had a lateral problem, a traditional lateral problem, and it needs to be repaired or replaced.
Okay, so the
And
numbers
those
are
are
small.
numbers.
So the numbers are small, you think? Okay.
Well, they're relatively small. We were guesstimating about $250 a year, and that's about $1.25 million. So I mentioned this the other night. So if the board chose to go backwards some number of years, whatever that is, that would be roughly you're talking about roughly $1 million per year, however far you want to go back.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
If you don't go back and you move forward, then there's no increase, no impact. But that is
Fair enough, okay. That's not a big number then. What do you think?
You good with that answer?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr.
Other
Chairman?
commissioners?
yes.
Oh. Commissioner Salemi, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, I think it certainly would be helpful to me, and I can only speak for myself when I say this, that, to see, for instance, our GIS system, the map of North Hartford, with areas where we've had problems with the flooding sort of shaded so that you can see this is not all of North Hartford has had, there are high points that don't receive these kind of problems. So, but, and I've asked before if you could restore, commissioners' ability to connect with the GIS system so we can look at that. I know that it was tremendously helpful to me, in the past to be able to do that because of the mapping is so detailed and so accurate, that it's really helpful when you're trying to get a graphic representation of where these things are happening and why perhaps, So if there's some way that we can do that, kind of restore the commissioner's ability to do that, I mean, I had a password and, I used to be able to connect, I didn't have to use the iPad. I mean, we didn't have iPads. Like, you'd be able to connect from my computer to it. And if we had some mapping of where we expect to be doing the most work, one of the questions that you just asked is like, I think you asked was, how far does $4 million go? I mean, how many, where is that going to take us? But certainly we'd expect to be doing those in the areas where they have the worst problems. You want to start where the worst problems are, we can have an effect on it. So, Scott, if there's something you can do, and I'd certainly be willing to help whatever way I could, but if there's something you can do to staff so that commissioners can access the GIS system again, not to change anything, just to see, just a view thing, so that you can see it.
And Commissioner, I know you've asked that before, and I know we've done it or didn't do it, and we're happy to do that. We can talk, I know IT staff is here. We can talk about that, not a problem. Just to clarify the $4 million, remember, there's other projects in the 129 that will be doing things that the $4 million is doing. But the $2 million we're asking for, the $4 million is a 2-year appropriation. So it's not, it's not the 10 years worth of work we're doing in North Hartford. It's just 2 years. We're asking for 2 years out, that 129, the $4 million within the 129. So there's much more money we're going to be asking for in the future. But remember, we don't ask, we used to ask in the past, give me 800 million. I'll see you in 30 years, right? That's what we did. Now we're asking on an annual basis how much money we want to do X. And in this case, that 4 million represents 2 million a year, 2 years worth of work in this North Hartford area.
Yeah, well, we've learned how much we think we can spend in a year.
Right, and that's the other thing is like the other projects are also doing things that are part of the contract. So but it is this is the 4 million is a 2-year request. We'll request every year more money. Now we might come to you in 2 years or a year and a half or next year and say, we don't need any more money because we haven't spent the 4, right? So but that's an annual budgetary request that we'll be doing at budget time.
The other question I got, so if we can do something about the mapping, I think it would be great because like for this meeting, the commissioners could get the map and get a look at it, it's kind of hard to see them on the iPad because the screen's so small.
Yeah.
But, if you got it at home. The second question is I got a call today from an East Hartford resident regarding the article that was in the newspaper, and there was one yesterday in the Journal Inquirer, and it sort of recounted the legislative funding of the $85 million, and so the question was: is any of the stuff that we're doing here? There's the $85 million that was appropriated by the legislature. Is that a part of anything that we're doing here? How does that wind up? It doesn't. And my answer was, well, I don't believe it comes to the MDC, but it's been established to, help support, correcting the issues in the North End Hartford, but not necessarily by giving that money to the MDC. So maybe you can just explain, the bill says $85 million.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to tell us what somebody else wrote.
Well,
Our position is that's not coming to us. Nobody's giving us $85 million.
Well, just to clarify, Commissioner, the bill, I didn't realize it was 85 million, but we're only getting 78 million grant. So our projects that we've identified in the North Hartford area is 155 million, and that hasn't changed. It's what we've been proposing forever. And they've agreed to fund certain things at 50% that they never funded before at all, private property work. And then they've also agreed to fund relining work that typically was only at 20%. So of that 155 million, they're giving us 78 million bucks in grant. I believe, I'm guessing that part of that 85 is also that $5 million that they've allocated towards the flooding. And there's probably some other numbers in there. I don't know what adds up to the total 85, but we are getting we are getting $78 million from deep, through other funding sources, in some cases, not the Clean Water Fund, because they can't use clean water funds to do private property work. I don't pretend to know the breakdown of what fund they use to fund the private property work versus I don't know.
But you think that the 78 million, did you
It's
say?
78 million.
78 million? You think that that's being funded by this legislation that was passed? I'm not saying
I
they're
don't know.
correct, but the newspaper said 85 million. So
I don't know. What I know is that the Clean Water Project is paying, as typical, is paying for the typical grant portion of the 78 million. And some of that 78 million is private property work, and therefore DEEP would not use clean water funds, and they've had some other funds, whatever those are, to fund that the private property work.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All set.
Thank you, Scott.
Further questions from commissioners on this issue? I'm sorry, Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions. The easiest would be for Attorney Stone, if he could provide us with on the bottom of page 4, it cites several state statutes, and on page 15, it cites several of the general statutes. If you could provide us with copies of those statutes. Sure. The other questions I have, Mr. Chairman, if you go to page 6, and just so I understand what I'm reading, in number 2, that 40 million per year, Scott, is that basically just a round down of what's MDC received for ad valorem?
No. So if you remember on the old consent order, we talked about this the other night as well. We had a mandate to spend a minimum of 40 million, and an average 5-year average, rolling average of 90 million. That was in the consent order. So we have to spend and in a sense build $90 million worth of work, right? Every year on average, 5-year average, minimum of 40. We're still going to have to comply with that on the old consent order projects, like the tunnels we're doing right now, the pump station, those kinds of things. And then the new consent order, which is the IP, the integrated plan, we agreed that how do we do more with less? Well, we spend less, right? We spend $40 million a year. So instead of spending 90 million under the consent order with DEEP, we only have to spend 40 now, and it's escalated. And that's how we got our affordability analysis. That's how we developed our rate structure over the next 40 years, because we need to know how much money we're going to spend every year for the next 40 years till 2056. So that's where the 40 million came in, and that's been there since forever, since January or December and September of 2022.
All right. In number 3 of the same page, it mentions CDM Smith Incorporated.
Page 3.
Page 6.
Oh, page 6. Boy, I can't read that. I'm
Number 3.
sorry.
I know it's hard with it shaded over. Do we know what the process was for selecting CDM Smith, and were we involved, as MDC was involved in that selection?
Yeah. So if we go back in time, so let's talk about going back way like 2005, even 2004. MDC was using CDM Smith to do a lot of the preliminary work on the consent order and consent decree work. And over time, that was that grew. I would bet, and I'm guessing here, but I think 2008 we probably did an RFQ. We selected CDM Smith to do our master planning, long-term control plan. Initially, Commissioner, the plan was when we had a PMU, we had a separate PMU upstairs in engineering. The initial plan was CDM was going to do all the planning, and then they were going to design the projects up to a certain point, like preliminary or design development, phase 1, phase 2 type stuff, and then hand it off to another on-call consultant. And over time, we modified that so that almost the majority of all of the design work is done by one of our on-call consultants. So CDM is really truly acting as our program manager, extension of staff, and we have a contract with them that is modified from time to time. It's like a 3-year contract, and we extend that contract. Did we just extend it just recently? So we procured them back in the day, Commissioner, and we have over time extended their contract to continue to do this work. It significantly changed, as you may or may not know. In the early days in 2008, it was like 8, 10, 12 million a year. And now it's in the $4 million range, $3 million range. So now they're just helping us manage and plan the engineering activity as if they were one of our project managers, our engineering staff. And then when we have projects to be designed, then we go off our on-call consulting services to do the actual design work.
And my last question is on page 6, number 2, paragraph 2, and it's not so much a question, it's just that I have pause in reading. The first sentence is a very long sentence, and the next sentence picks up with furthermore. So basically, the whole paragraph is like one sentence, and it does lend me to some concern that the commissioner has what appears to be almost unilateral authority in setting whatever the bottom line may be for MDC expenditures. Could you comment on that?
It's the second part of number 2.
Yeah.
Is the commissioners, if I might, Chris Stone, District Counsel, I think you're referring, Commissioner Curry, to in that section 2, the second paragraph, the commissioner's authority to, first of all, the commissioner has a lot of authority, and some of the statutes that you referred to earlier set out the commissioner's authority, notwithstanding what we might or may not agree to, but pursuant to this consent order, which is exactly that, it's an order from DEEP that we consent to, so it's a consent order. The commissioner's authority to increase the $40 million minimum is somewhat tempered by the following provisions, which talk about engineering principles, and most importantly to us, findings of changes in affordability. So this plan is based upon an affordability model that DEEP has accepted. Should that affordability model change one way or the other, but in this case, if it's demonstrated that our affordability analysis leads to a greater spend, then he or she has the authority to increase our annual spend from $40 million to some other number. That's not anything other than what's already in the consent decree that was, or I'm sorry, the consent order that was approved back in December of 2022 on the integrated plan.
And in addition to that, it also allows us to escalate, right? So 40 million today is not the same as 40 million 10 years from now. So our model uses 3%, or is it 5%? 3%. So we use a 3%, in our model, we use the 40 million grows. So we're going to spend 40 million this year and 40 million times 1.03, whatever that is. And so it's indexed based on escalation.
Thank you.
All set, Commissioner Curry?
Yes, thank you.
We have on the phone Commissioner Adel, who had a question.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. For Scott, well, first, needless to say, Weathersfield is very disappointed that we've now pushed off another 10 years. My understanding when I helped negotiate this agreement in the first place when I was mayor was that it would be done closer to 2024, 2025. So I would think, given how tremendous believe that residents in my community supported the referendums based on our promises, that there's going to be a lot of disappointed people up there. So my question is there something else that can be done for Weathersfield and St. Newington who have an issue sending parts, in our case in Weathersfield, parts of our sewage into the Hartford plant? Those lines that do go into the Hartford plant are somehow added to by waters coming in from people's sump pumps or whatever. So is there something that can be done? Or in the plan, is there already something in the plan that'll help Weathersfield to reduce the stresses of the waters that are going in and rain events? That would be my first question.
Yes, Scott Jelson, Commissioner. So if you look at Appendix C, which is part of the consent order, you can see Franklin project, the project 4 that we're planning to eliminate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overflows. That was originally planned to be completed in 2029. What we have proposed as part of this is said that we will have this. I think I read it, but it's a drainage study, which is page number 5, 6. I don't know. Can't read the goddamn. What page is that?
5.
5. Okay, page 5. Number 4. We're going to complete a drainage study by December 31st of 2027 to determine how we actually achieve the elimination of those. And I agree with you, Commissioner. The fact that it's pushed off, but we have flexibility, and we have said, and Deep has agreed that we will achieve that goal. They won't tell us how to achieve it, but we'll achieve that goal between 2030 and 2040. Now, remember, this goes back to the whole logic of what we're doing here. We're spending, in order to achieve the goal of elimination to the Weathersfield Cove, the contract 4 is about $120 million total, a bunch of projects. Our solution is, instead of spending $129 million in building bigger pipes to collect overflows, why don't we take that $120 million and put in new pipes on Franklin Avenue, which are causing the overflows, catch it at the source, which is at the property and at the street, and then you have even a better level of control. Not only do you eliminate the overflows at the Weathersfield Cove, but you also eliminate the overflows of all of those other overflows that are going to the Connecticut River just outside the mouth of the Weathersfield Cove. So I don't disagree with you, but there is a better solution than what we've been performing in the past, which Connecticut, Hartford region will see a significant benefit rather than just eliminating overflows at the Weathersfield Cove. Let's eliminate the overflows all along the river, North Branch of the Park River, and you theoretically will have 0 overflows at some point in time. It's going to take longer, no doubt about it, but it was the only way that we could accommodate the request from EPA, the state of Connecticut, our legislature, to start working in North Hartford by July of this year. It was the only solution, which was to push $300 million worth of work. Otherwise, we would have had to raise the rates. That was the only solution we had.
Gotcha. All right. And then my second question, Mr. Chairman, is regarding the priority list that I've received. North Gully, North Branch and Gully Brook. Will this money be used to clear up those connections to those areas so that water can flow, which you can't right now?
Just to clarify, so prior to what we proposed, the September agreement consent order, we were spending about, pick a number, 50 some odd million dollars over the next 10 years in North Hartford area, right? The majority of the work that we were doing in North Hartford area was, again, building big stuff to pick up overflows that went to the north branch of the Park River. So now we're proposing to spend $155 million directly in the community, the streets of North Hartford, to achieve the same goal with separation. But what we're not doing, and this is not part of this budget, it is not part of this budget, is it has nothing to do with dredging the north branch of the Park River, which is where we're planning to dump our clean, separated stormwater. So I thought you were referring to the north branch of the Park River dredging. This is not that, right? That is what the drainage study is going to be doing. We're going to have to sit down with the city of Hartford once that's drainage study is performed. As you know, we've entered into an MOU with the city of Hartford to study the drainage in the Granby Blue Hills area, as well as the drainage in the river itself. And our position is that the north branch of the Park River dredging is a flood control component of the flood control system in the city of Hartford. And I know the city has talked to EPA and DEEP about getting some funding for that. We haven't heard any more regarding that topic since probably April when the issue came up. But that's something that's going to have to be resolved because the only solution is the dredging of the north branch of the Park River in order to address not just MDC's issues, but localized flooding issues that are occurring independent of MDC issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Adel. Chairman DeBellis.
On Blue Hills.
Well, we're doing the drainage study now. As we mentioned at one of our last meetings, our meters have been installed, our sewer meters have been installed. We're actually doing drainage study calculations and work within the community, but that's going to be at least 12 months out. We'll start to see some information that can give us some understanding of what's happening out there. But it's really an 18-month study. And then once that study is done, then we can start to design those separation projects, contracts 7, 8, and 9, as to what we're actually going to do out there.
That'll be probably in 25 rather
Yeah.
than 24.
26, yeah.
26.
Further questions, commissioners? If not,
Yes,
we need to move the
Through you,
item.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
I wanted to,
Commissioner Stuber.
thank you. For the CEO, through you, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to clarify, you remarked before that as part of the discussions with DEEP that you had enabled the map of the affected area here to extend to Albany Avenue. I just wanted to clarify what that means. The maps that I've seen previously had shown the impact area is going to stop in a couple blocks north of Albany Avenue.
Correct.
And so are you talking about now that the accelerated sewer separation work will come down to include Albany Avenue itself, will go south of Albany Avenue, or what does that mean?
Yes, so Scott Chelsea, so it's not going to include additional separation work, but it will allow us to use the 50% funding for private property work in those areas. So we're not proposing to do any separation work in there, but what we wanted to do is say, listen, there's a lot of Hartford residents that believe that the definition of North Hartford includes Albany Avenue. We agree with that. So we wanted to extend that map down below so that when we do work in that area, we get 50% grant for it.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that, the area that's been designated now, if I read it correctly, Commissioner of DEEP at any time can revise that area.
No, not with this approval. We have been working directly with DEEP staff. I mean, up to this morning, and we've got a commitment from DEEP that this is it, right? This document that's in front of you is the final document. Do we have any understanding of when they're going to sign it, or are they waiting for us to approve it? They're waiting for us to approve it. So if you approve this document tonight, Commissioner, at the board level and at BPW level, then it wouldn't change, and there's no changes. They would have to come back to us and ask for us to revise it, obviously, which we could or won't. But we don't believe there'll be any changes at all for the next 4 years. This is a interactive process that's the good news is the way we used to work with DEEP is we would do this long-term control plan and it would be set for 30 years and then we'd update it over every 5 years. But the scope never changed. We just do an update. Now they've said, the younger staff and newer staff at DEEP said, we're just going to do 5 years, 6 years out, and that's our goal. So that's why we got phase one, we haven't even identified phase two yet. So we agree that's the solution. We know what we got to do in the next 8 years. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to get it done. And then we'll start talking in 2027, 28 about what's the next phase of this program.
And I think just one more question, Mr. Chairman. With this change and new direction that MDC and all the additional work that they're undertaking, how is our staffing levels, whether it be engineering or I even have some concern with Attorney Stone's office that they may find themselves a bit busier when decisions are made that may not be agreeable to all.
Yes, and I addressed this the other night at the meeting, Commissioner. I'm not sure if you were there, but yes, there's no doubt that we're going to need additional staff, especially in utility services, which is where this lateral program is going to really, a lot of activity is going to occur. We're going to need additional staff in engineering and construction inspection. And there'll be some other areas in finance. I'm not sure about Chris, but we are going to be asking, and I mentioned this at the meeting the other night, we're going to be asking in the budget for additional staff to be budgeted this coming year.
Okay. And like municipalities with bonding, is it possible for MDC to utilize clean water money to pay for, call it clerk of the works or oversight staff?
Yes, we do that. All of our engineers and our construction inspection teams are all capitalized. So all of the clean water project pays for anybody working on clean water projects. Anybody who's working on a capital improvement project on the normal general sewer or general water is paid for by that capital budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just one last
I'm sorry.
question. David Drake.
Commissioner Drake.
Why do you need more staff? Because we're basically delaying the projects to do this, so we're not doing any more. Plus, isn't DEP taking? Well, I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I looked at the newspaper. What was it? Was the state controller Scanlon?
Yeah, Scanlon. Yeah.
He basically said he's in charge. I was going to ask
There you go.
And he's
There
in
you
charge
go.
now. So you go work
Perfect.
for him? Is that how that works?
We just had a meeting about that today.
Okay.
Like, what are they doing? I don't know. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so just remember this is that, and I've said this before, I truly believe that only the MDC has the capability of doing what we did, right? I mean, we were going to spend $47 million in this area over the next 10 years. And in less than 3 months, we said, no, we'll do 155 million. And remember, doing a lot of separation work is a lot harder than doing big projects. Like doing the tunnel, very little, resources, one engineering firm, one CM firm, and staff, right? But when you've got multiple, like on Durham Street, we just had a meeting today with staff and with the community. We promised we'd be out there digging in July. Well, we're out there today saying we're going to be out here digging in July, and we'll be putting water main services in. So there's a lot more work in smaller projects, separation projects. There's more activity. There's more problems, and the lateral program, as you can imagine. As soon as somebody asked a question the other night, how are we going to reach out to our other communities and let them know about this program? And the point is, when that happens, you're going to get a lot of phone calls. So the phone calls that we don't have right now, we're going to get. And we're going to have to go out, and everybody's going to expect that we're going to go out. And when we get a phone call, there's a reasonableness of when you're going to get out there and do that assessment on that property. And when am I going to get my new lateral? So there's a lot of work that's going to happen in utility services. For sure. Keeping track of all this stuff is going to be very important with our engineering department and our communications department, and our finance department. we're gonna be herding cats, so to speak. You know, you got these laterals, this lateral program is gonna come into the MDC in 4 or 5 different ways. It could be a sewer collapse in the middle of the night. It could be contractor going into utility services saying, I got a customer that wants a lateral replaced. It could be a developer saying, I'm gonna build 100 new homes. And it could be just a DPA through engineering, or it could be the Clean Water Project. We're gonna line a bunch of laterals as part of this project. So there's a lot that's gonna happen here quickly.
So we need to have a motion to approve a modification as listed in number 4. We have a motion and a second? Second, thank you. All in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, approved unanimously. Thank you. Number 5.
We're not done yet.
No, you're not. I know. So, number 5. The action on the sewer house connection. This is Scott's favorite topic.
Yes, I love that stuff. So I'm gonna let Chris explain that, the program. I'm just gonna, for everyone's benefit, because we talked about this the other night. Yeah, we talked about it in detail the other night. I don't even remember what board meeting that was. What was that, finance? Finance. So what we did for you, just like we did with the consent order, is everything that you saw the other night, we gave you a clean copy of that document with all the accepted changes. And then we've modified the document based on comments. I know Commissioner Stuber had a comment, good comment. Other commissioners had good comments. The changes that you see in red are simply no changes to the program, just simply to clarify the program. And
Scott, those are the ordinances for the board.
Yes.
So it
Yep.
ties into the program.
yeah, but I just want to make sure that the ordinances that we're talking about tonight haven't been changed from the other night. We just simply tried to clarify as best as possible. But you should have a copy of this in front of you, okay? And Chris, go ahead.
Yep, Chris Levesque, Chief Operating Officer, MDC. I'm going to go through this program. Now, this program is a revision to a program that was approved by Bureau of Public Works in December of 2019 and then executed in 2020. And that was for the installation of new house connections as well as replacement of house connections that could be repaid back, the cost could be repaid back to the district by the property owner. So a little bit changed, but just quickly go through. So program objectives, and this is going to be specific to 2 of the scenarios of the 5 that we're going to go through, and this is the renewal of the existing laterals. But so overall, so that's groundwater getting into cracks, open joints within the pipe that is causing additional infiltration that ultimately, one, either causes overflows or increases essentially clean water flow to our wastewater treatment plant. It's the next objective is going to create much more improved customer service operations with the property owners on how to address, and we're going to get into this, what some of those defects are that they may have in their house connections. And then we're going to go and take a look at also a real reduction in the number of sewer house connection backups. So potential backups that customers have in their basements. How is this going to address it? That's a huge objective of this program. And then also a real financial improvement to our customers in addressing, in some cases, cost of the repairs, and then potentially customers not being informed on how to actually address these with a contractor. So typically that's where the MDC comes in, and we're just going to have a larger portion within that process. So just sort of level set, I know there was a bunch of questions at last 2 nights ago, government meeting on who owns the house connection. So if you own a building or a house, then you also own the house connection. And we're going to get into what actually equals the house connection, but that's the next bullet, actually. House connections extend from the building to the point of the connection with the public sewer. So that's typically the pipe out in the street. In the case that was discussed earlier by the resident and customer in West Hartford, the public sewer was actually in a right-of-way within private land. So again, the customer owns the full length of the pipe and all the maintenance associated with that. So pictorially, what does that look like? So this is actually a great picture. So as you can see on the bottom, sort of leader, property owner responsible for keeping free of all clogs. So all blockages, ultimately, customer's responsibility. Now, customer owns all the maintenance, right? So what the MDC does in the case where there is a repair requiring where the pipe is broken. So if there's a broken pipe in the public right-of-way, so we typically look at that as the property line to the main line sewer. So that's the pipe in the street. MDC, at no cost to the customer, with it's more of a courtesy even to the towns that MDC will actually go in, excavate within the public right-of-way, and replace that section of the house connection with new pipe and make a connection to the house connection within private lands. Currently, still today, the private property owner is responsible for repairing any breaks within private land. So that's basically from the private property line to the building. So this is sort of a depiction of what that looks like. I'll open it up for any questions on this, because I know this was a discussion point last meeting. But if the picture clarifies it at all or helps clarify it.
Just to kind of ask one clarifying question that underscores the point I did raise at the last meeting. So this picture that's being shown here is the current state of affairs, and it remains the state of affairs under the proposal that's before us.
Correct. Yes. There. The one difference, and I'm actually going to show this slide one more time. This slide is going to allow us to provide an option for the property owner to address, one, the maintenance, so removing those blockages, those clogs, or making the repairs of the breaks within private property. So there's options now for the customer, which comes with funding.
Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you. So in reading through the criteria of the house connection program, the various different scenarios that you have here, I don't see anything that distinguishes the elements or the differences when it's a combined sewer. So, for instance, there are a couple different issues with that. So, combined sewer, obviously the roof leaders would be tied to this system as well, and then in some cases, and that should only be in Hartford where there's combined sewers. But in the other member towns, there are instances where people have sump pumps where they're putting groundwater into our system, and it's prohibited. They're really not supposed to be doing that. But so, is there a difference? I don't read anything here. Is where we distinguish that. So, what happens if we're going to replace the lateral for someone that we believe is damaged or allowing infiltration or something? So we're gonna replace that lateral for them. What are we gonna do about the if it's combined sewers? Are we gonna do anything different with that? That's my question. It doesn't appear that we're doing anything different here, but that doesn't mean that we're not. I just can't read it. So.
Yeah. Short answer: yes. We are going to be doing something. The requirement for the sewer house connection program is that the property owner participates and agrees to participate within our backwater valve and private property inflow disconnect program. So that could be private property inflow disconnect is also the removal of groundwater. So if they have a sump pit with a backwater valve and it's a direct shot right into the single house connection pipe that goes to the combined sewer, we're going to get in there, one, put a new backwater valve with a backup, or in some cases, a new sump pump in replacement of that backwater valve, and then one, looked for a discharge point on the property that is amendable for the property owner as well as within building code or local ordinances. And then with the cases of, in separation areas, we will be looking as part of our separation projects is to install that storm lateral connection ultimately to that new storm pipe in that we're going to be doing as part of the separation project. So, so the short answer is yes, there's a lot of different flavors and options that we do within the private properties to get this addressed. But yes, we are looking to get every single inflow source, so rainwater, groundwater, out of our combined sewer system and into a dedicated storm system.
So if we, and I won't keep going, just a quick question. So if it is, let's say, if it is a residence in Hartford that typically they might have both the roof leaders and the sanitary sewers connected together at some point inside the house. So you're saying that we're actually going to separate those. That's part of our separation project. So are we going to put two laterals and we're going to put one lateral in for the sanitary and another lateral for the storm? Or what are we doing with the storm? Obviously, we got to put a new lateral in for the sanitary. What are we doing with the stormwater?
Yep, so currently right now, if there is only one combined sewer pipe, no stormwater pipe out in the street, for any new connection, so if a new building goes up in Hartford, we require a dedicated sanitary house connection as well as a dedicated storm house connection. And if there's only one pipe in the street, what we end up allowing them to do, if it's not considered a new inflow source, is to allow them to basically TY into, at the property line, into the sanitary house connection. This allows us, at some point, if a new storm drain gets installed in the street, we're just putting in that portion of the house connection within the public right-of-way to take out that inflow and infiltration source. Does that help?
That answers my question with respect to the criteria you set up here. It just wasn't, it's not narrated in this, but you answered it. You answered how.
Yeah, and this program would also allow us to do the storm lateral in the case that ultimately it's part of our Clean Water Project program, and that defined in with those project requirements, which allowed us to do it on previous separation projects. But we could do it.
What you described is the flip side of what we did, and I know you weren't there, but what was done in the south end in the 70s, which was built a new sanitary sewer and then developed two laterals coming out of every house.
Yeah.
Use the old one for stormwater and a new one for sanitary. You're just going to do it the other way around.
Yeah, and it could go that way too. It depends on the street. So that's part of the North Branch of the Park River drainage analysis that's being conducted right now. So,
Thank you.
I'll quickly go over this. So problems that occur within house connections include clogs and blockages. So those are what we see typically when the phone rings 24/7 down at our command center. Customers have a problem. Their sewer house connection has some type of blockage in it. This program covers addressing that blockage. Currently right now, and this still stays the same, it's an option for the customer to utilize this program. They're ultimately still responsible for removing any type of blockages in there. If they call us, we'll help facilitate that and also offer the funding source for it. Now, again, this is just sort of a word version of what we talked about on the previous pictorial slide. I'll move forward now, but again, here's the slide again. So the yellow portion there, that's what the program's going to offer for some type of renewal method. Okay, so that renewal method could be open excavation. So we're going to take out potentially that old tile pipe and put a new PVC pipe in. Other methods could include lining of that section within private property with a situ-form liner. So we pull through a sock, inflate it, and it forms the shape of the pipe. Or in some cases where this is a great option, customer has a nice patio, landscaping, could be some other type of permanent fixture above their house connection. But the house connection requires dig repair. A liner method isn't applicable to do. We do have the capability, and it actually was approved a number of years ago within our ordinances allow for pipe bursting. So pipe bursting is essentially pulling a new HDPE pipe through, and as that pipe gets through, there's basically a cone section in front of it that breaks the pipe up, so the tile pipe would be broken in front of it, and then a new, basically seamless pipe would be pulled in replacement of that broken pipe. So it is a nice method that would greatly reduce the restoration costs potentially at certain properties. So we have a various sort of many tools in the toolbox to get this done. So I am going to go through this because what was discussed back in late 2019 as part of the sewer service replacement program. I think that was the program name. It's our current program that we do right now for new connections as well as replacement of connections. But there are 3 specific scenarios that we do follow. So this gets into what Scott was discussing as far as layout and assessments. So those are customers that don't have service today. They would petition the MDC for water sewer service. We would look at it. We would bring it to Bureau of Public Works, have a public hearing process. Ultimately, if approved, we'd build the sewer. As part of that, building that sewer, that's the first option, we would offer the property owner, hey, we will run the portion of the house connection, which is defined as the lateral from the main pipe to the private property line, for potential future hookup for that property. And that's currently right now the price is $4,420 for that portion, the lateral portion of the house connection. There's other costs associated with the assessment, connection fees, those type of things. But the next one would be, okay, customer already has that lateral portion of the house connection installed. They can connect their private property side. Same first section too. They can utilize this program to receive funding that would be paid back through a voluntary loan, because it is a new connection. It's not an existing connection. But that would be done as like it is done today. They would apply. There's a $10,000 maximum. We typically see these a lot lower than $10,000, but they would funding will be available. They would pay it back over a 15-year period. But if they never connect, that lateral that's in the public right-of-way, still the MDC's responsibility. If it requires to dig it up, we would have to dig it up and repair it or replace it. Third one is just a variant of that. Sewer gets run by, property was never developed, they never requested sewer house connection. Sorry, I got a little electric shock every time I say it now. I'm trying to train myself. But that is, they would come in, seek a new permit connection through our utility services, and then we offer the customer the $10,000 maximum for a new house connection from the sewer to the property. Again, that would be paid back through that voluntary lien with the customer. So that's today's current program for new connections. That exact process stays the same. Now what's changing is scenario 4 and 5. These are for existing connections, okay? We had a scenario 4 in the previous program that we presented again back in December of 2019, but this is for the replacement or the renewal, so could use any one of those methods: excavate, line, pipe burst. And the renewal method could be applied to either 4 or 5, any of them. But what we wanted to differentiate between 4 and 5 is in areas where we have the requirement to remove that infiltration as part of a separation project, a clean water program project, we have to do it regardless of what the potential cost is. The majority of them, 90+% of them, are all going to be under $10,000. But in the case where we're not going to stop 5 feet short from the house and addressing the problem, if at $10,000, we're going to keep going. So that's where the qualifier is for scenario 5. But scenario 4 is open for the entire district wide, that if there is a problem associated with the lateral, house connection. I was good before you came, Scott, I was like 100%, but, is that there would be funding available up to $10,000 to address that house connection issue. Now, part of this program that is not discussed as far as the renewal portion, I'll go back to this slide. Scott, I hope you like this picture. I hope it clearly defines the house connection, but is the maintenance portion. And this is the other component of the program, as discussed in under scenarios 4 and 5 of the resolution. So this is the maintenance. So I was referred to it as these calls. A lot of them occur off hours. So most customers have the day shift, just like the majority of the staff at the district. But when they come home, they have a sewer problem, and they're not sure why the toilets aren't flushing, or there might be a little water in the basement. So they call our command center. Now there's a process that we follow. We'll go and check the upstream and downstream manhole, make sure the sewer's flowing well. If the sewer's flowing well, we let them know how to address their needs. We provide them a 37A form. So if you're getting a sewer house connection backup, we provide this form. It provides instructions. Post ordinance approval and resolution, there will be a modified 37A form that addresses this program and it communicates out to them. So that's going to be our initial communication to customers as they're having a true problem. So that 37A form is now going to let them know that, hey, there is a program now that the MDC, will assist the property owner in seeing to try to identify what the cause of that blockage is in their house connection. So we are currently right now, which I believe the proposals come back end of next week, that have a contractor base that helps support this. Again, utilizing the 30% local Hartford workforce with these contractors to respond emergency and non-emergency events to these properties to assist them. So these will all be fixed price costs. So this is we'll get the sort of the efficiency and volume, as well as also not have our customers incur exasperated charges, which does occur with certain contractors when they have to go make these investigations and ultimately rotting of these laterals to remove the blockage. So that is a service within this program. Following, if we're able to remove the blockage within the house connection, an inspection will follow immediately after to determine what that cause of the blockage was. Whether it be roots, grease, debris in the house connection, we'll determine that. Following that, we will define what the severity of the defect was. So if it's a broken pipe, collapsed pipe, we will be utilizing, and it's discussed in here, there's a NASCO standard of evaluation, assessment of pipes. That's what we've been using over 18 years now. In my career here, that has been our standard of evaluating pipes. So that is going to determine how the severity is, but it also is going to determine when do you need to make the repair? When do you need to make the renewal? So if it's a 5, essentially immediate. 4, you have a number of years with proper maintenance. 3, you have extended beyond number of years, could be 2 decades, as long as you're doing the proper maintenance. So our goal is when we leave that property, if there are a 3 and a 4, we're providing them that. The 4s go on the list as a triage of future house connection renewal. And then we're going to be monitoring that with the property owner. We're also going to provide them a maintenance plan that, again, goes back to this slide. It's going to be the property owner's responsibility to maintain that house connection per that maintenance plan.
Chris, just to clarify, the maintenance program that we're clarifying here exists today. No difference. The ordinances are very clear. The maintenance of this lateral house connection is the responsibility of the homeowner, period. We're not changing that. We don't want to change it. We want to keep the liability with the homeowner. All we're simply doing is saying that if you want, you can enter a program and we will project manage the replacement of your house connection for you. And then we also in the ordinance give the opportunity for the homeowner, if they want to go out and hire their own contractor and follow our process to replace the house connection, they can do that. And the process is very simple. It's no change. It's you've got to provide us with a cost estimate and utility services. Your contractor must be permittable, so they must be bonded and insured. And then it would have to be inspected by our inspectors to verify that it was done correctly per our standards. So we're giving the homeowner two options. Follow our program, we'll manage it all for you, but you own the maintenance. Remember the liability. We don't want to take the maintenance. We don't want to take the liability when we don't have it now, right? And if you don't like the fact that we say it's gonna, we'll be back in 4 months to replace it, you can choose to do it the way it's been done for years, except we will reimburse you and your contractor if you follow the process. So we spent a lot of time last 2 days making sure that we clarify that in the ordinance.
Yep, and areas outside of our north, so district-wide, the customer is gonna have, first default would be the customer can hire their contractor or multiple contractors. They just have to go through our process providing quotes, and we can make sure it's fair and reasonable, the price for the renewal process.
Chris, we do need to get moving
Okay.
on the, because the board meeting is on at 5:30. So
Okay.
if we could just kind of, if it's okay with the,
As long as there are no other commissioner questions.
you want to just leave it there for questions? And let's start with questions.
Well, can we ask the questions in the board
It's up to
meeting?
you.
Oh, sure.
Because the
I'll ask
board
mine
meeting's
now.
gonna make the changes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll ask Commissioner Curry.
Chris, how far is MDC's reach when it is directed to the homeowner in terms of maintaining that sewer line? For example, you've got a weeping willow tree right above the line, you do the inspection, they love sewer lines, you've got a line full of roots. Are you going to tell the homeowner that we've got it this time, but if you don't take down that tree and it's full of roots again, it's on you? How far does maintenance reach in terms of what you might consider normal routine maintenance?
So, great question. Just like we would maintain our public sewers, if there's a case where there's extreme root infiltration, those type of things, our initial one will be to remove those roots through the rotting mechanism in the cutter. Following that, looking at the site, so if there's a weeping willow tree, perfect tree for those roots, we're gonna let the customer know a couple options. Rot it every 6 months as part of your maintenance plan, or remove the tree. But ultimately, structurally, your lateral looks really good. There's no infiltration, those type of things. Where do you fall on the grade system of NASCO? We'll determine that as far as the applicability for the full renewal. But in the case where lateral, heavy roots, broken pipe, that'll probably classify as a renewal candidate.
My question really is, if the homeowner doesn't remove the tree and in 1 year, 2 year, the same problem exists, are we going to again do it and cover the cost while the homeowner never removed the tree?
No.
No. We're gonna be giving them the maintenance plan that they need to follow, and then ultimately say, hey, based on the score that you received, NASCO is gonna tell us when we should go back and re-inspect it. That will, more than likely, is gonna fall within the program. As long as they're following the maintenance program, just like we would inspect our CCTV, our sewers in the street, there's timetables and frequencies that you do based on the severity code of that previous inspection.
Thank you.
Does that help?
And that's
Yeah.
why, again, this is very important. This is the ordinance as it exists, we don't want to change the liability of the maintenance. We only are saying we will give you a free house connection if it needs to be replaced. But liability of maintenance is yours.
Yeah,
This quick,
Commissioner Salemi.
so the responsibility for maintenance extends to the backwater valve too. So the homeowner is responsible for the backwater, for maintaining, which does have some, I don't know if they're annual, but that has a regular scheduled maintenance program for backwater valves. So they're gonna understand that and they're gonna be responsible for that.
Correct.
And
you.
just to clarify this, because I know it may come up, is when we're going through these, and if there's a maintenance plan on a house connection and the property owner moves and a new one moves in, we want to put that on and make that forward facing for the customer service rep to communicate with the future property owner as well as the backwater valve. So we would like to make sure all that equipment that is installed on property that MDC did through one of its programs, the future customer is aware that they have maintenance requirements.
Thank you, Chairman.
yes, Commissioner Johnson, correct?
Does this, go with the land records at all? Is it something that's,
Not this, no.
The
No, it does not.
so when the property changes, there's no land record?
Well, I think to Chris.
scenario 1, 2, and 3 do, but
Yeah, well, that's automatic. I was talking about 4 and 5, what we have to invest in. The, what we may consider doing, Chris, in light of that question and the question from Commissioner Salemi, is within the property transfer form that we now have on real estate transfers, include within that a section of notice to the new owner, right? So, and make a record that we put the new owner on notice that they have a backwater valve that needs to be maintained, that they recently got a new sewer lateral that needs to be maintained, that there's a willow tree out in the front yard that needs to be addressed, et cetera. But put that property owner on notice coming in, because oftentimes, while it may be in the real estate disclosure form that is generally applicable to residential real estate sales, this may not be covered. And as a matter of fact, I don't think it is covered. It's that specific, particular. So, but we'll consider that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. If you can hold your questions, because we're going to discuss this again at the full board. So unless there's a pressing question that you have immediately, we do need to move this item, take the vote. We have a public comment section to go before we adjourn. So if there are any other questions that can't wait, we'll take them now. Otherwise, looking for a motion to move the item number 5.
Move adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. This motion is approved unanimously, and we'll move on to the full board. At this point, we do have an opportunity for any public comments. I don't know if there's one comment on the phone, but this is the opportunity. We'll make that clear once again. General comments, hearing none. Any commissioner requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, look for the appropriate motion.
So moved.
Adjourn.
Good time.
Thank you.